This will finish up step 6 and then finish us with step 7 in the textbook. I just wanted to take 2 seconds to touch base about Cadence's IEP. Hold on, it's uh-oh, what's happening? Hello, test, 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 test. Hold on. Okay, I'm still going. Sorry, there's a little technology issue. So going back to Candace, for an example, state why the student cannot participate in the regular assessment. Well, her skills in math and language arts are approximately 2 years behind her typically developing peers. Her poor communication skills and limited attention span impair her ability to successfully demonstrate achievement on standardized tests. So then here's the statement as to why selected alternate assessment is appropriate. She was administered the alternate assessment at the beginning of this year and was able to demonstrate her skills, given multiple testing breaks, prompts to stay on task, concrete examples, and multiple explanations of the tasks in a one-to-one setting. So if she was able to demonstrate that capacity using these accommodations or modifications, right, then that shows, hey, she can't participate in the regular assessment in a traditional way. So let's give her these supports so that she can show her learning. Okay, so again, here are some practice. You can practice, you don't have to submit. And then here is, how this is decided and what must be included on the IEP. Remember, here are your options of ways to assess your students: regular, same test that everybody else takes, regular assessment with appropriate accommodations, alternate assessments based on grade level, academic achievement standards, and then alternate assessments based on alternate academic achievement standards. And again, you can go back to step 1 if you have more questions about that. All right, let's do this. We have gone through steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember present levels of AA and FP, writing measurable annual goals, measuring and reporting student progress, state the services needed to achieve the annual goals. How are they going to get there? Explain the extent, if any, the student will not participate with non-disabled students. And then this kind of goes along with step 5, right? Explain accommodations necessary to measure academic achievement and FP on state and district-wide assessments. Again, remember the AA and FP drives your goals, which is going to drive your instruction, right? Not the other way around. Keep that in mind as well. And then step 7, complete a transition plan for students age 16. And I kind of think of that in quotes, and older. And we'll talk about that. All right, so let's get to step 7. Okay, complete a transition plan for our students who are of age. This is a student-centered process of structuring coursework and other educational experiences to prepare the student for transition from school to adult life, right? Or to post-secondary life, post-school life, whatever you want to call it. So there is a formal document, a transition plan is a formal document that complements and goes along with the IEP. So IDEA requires the IEP team develops, I had to think about that in my head first, requires that a transition plan is developed when a student turns 16 or younger if it's determined appropriate by the IEP team, right? So some states set the mandatory age of 14. Transition plans must be reviewed and updated annually until the student either reaches age 22 or no longer requires special education services. So think about our friend Thomas. I think Thomas was what, in 10th grade, maybe 11th grade. So, but for him, we probably, or the IEP team probably wanted to start thinking about transition earlier than 16, right? He has a lot going on. He has a lot of needs. So for somebody like Thomas, earlier than 16 probably would have been appropriate. Okay, so who is involved? Same old, the IEP team is involved. And also, guess who else? Very important, the student, right? We're talking about their lives, not ours. So we need to make sure the student is involved. There's usually community-based services such as Voc Rehab, post-secondary education training, college accessibility programs. There are a lot more of these out there now. Mental health services, employers, and other representatives if needed. So there's a lot of people that can be involved with transition. So a transition plan must include the components. So yes, sometimes yes, younger than 16. must include, I am struggling, appropriate measurable post-secondary goals based on age-appropriate transition assessments. And you want to make sure that we're using, because I may have actually skipped this. I sure did. So you want to think about formal and informal assessments. And the second half of this course is all about transition. So step 7 really leads us into kind of the second half of the course where we're going to talk more about transition and what it means and what it looks like. And in fact, hold on, I have a little note, but I'm not sure what page it's on, so I'll get there in just a second. So transition plan must include these 3 components, okay? Appropriate measurable post-secondary goals based upon age-appropriate transition assessments related to training, educate, that's like jobs, right? Training, education, employment, and where appropriate, independent living skills. Also must include a statement of transition services, including courses of study. Again, think back to Thomas. There was it said year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. So think about that are necessary to assist the student in reaching their goals. And then a statement that the student has been informed of transfer of adult rights, not later than 1 year before the student reaches the age of majority. So again, this is basically saying, hey, student, like you're now an adult. You're responsible for yourself kind of thing. Your parents don't, or your guardians don't have to come to meetings with you. They don't have to be involved. A lot of families and guardians are still involved after the student reaches this age, but it's not required anymore. Okay, so how does the team accomplish transition planning? Well, we're going to look at post-secondary goals, transition services, and transfer of adult rights. Okay, so you want to think about, excuse me. So you want to think about looking at assessments that guide discussions of the student's career interests, desires for continuing education, and expectations for independent adult living. And student Bob's career interests might be different, and probably will be different than student Georgia's career interests, right? So Georgia might say, I'm good going to a trade school or something like that. Whereas Bob might say, no, I think I can handle like being a teacher's assistant or something like that. Okay, so again, appropriate and individualized for that particular student. So we want to think about behavior that will occur after the student leaves high school, right? Which some students, they might be in high school until they're age 21. So we want to think about that. That's why they need to be involved in as much, to the greatest extent possible. They need to be involved in their own transition plan. Okay, so we want to look at education, training, employment, independent living, and daily living skills, when available. If the individual wants to live independently, then we want to look at independent living goals, daily living skills, stuff like that. If the person or the team decides living independent, might not, or independently, might not be in the cards for student Georgia over here, maybe we don't need independent living goals, right? But still, we want to think about transportation, ways to access community service, ways to access leisure activities that their peers might be taking place at. Y'all know what I mean. All right, so here are some examples of IEP goals for transition. Okay, so take a couple seconds and read those goals. Okay, and then how are these goals different from IEP? Again, we want to think about behaviors that will occur after the student leaves school. So look at where the student's interests lie and then transfer those areas to, education, what the student wants to study, where, what are the admission requirements in case they do want to go to college, training, what are specific skills for desired employment? Maybe they need word processing, something like that. Employment, what do they ideally and realistically want for their trade or occupation. Independent living, what is the type of housing that the student desires upon completion of school, and daily living skills as appropriate. And again, as we get into the second half of the semester, we have you have some assignments that are related to transition and things like this. So here are some examples of post-secondary transition goals, and I did put a little note right here. These examples will help you with your assignment at the end of the semester. So there's a assignment that you will do at the end of the semester. I got a little crazy here and highlighted this other G, by the way, but it's just really supposed to be training, but that's okay. So take a few seconds and read these goals. There's a training goal. The student is going to learn framing by working with his uncle and local business. Here's an independent living goal, and here is an education goal. So take a few seconds and look at those. If I could tell you what page number they were on, I would, but no. Oh, let me show y'all. No pages. See? Not lying, I promise. All right. So, anyways, take a few minutes and look at those goals because it will help you later on in the semester. Okay, so transition services, again, courses of study necessary to assist the student in reaching their goals. So again, thinking back to Thomas, what courses of study would be helpful for Thomas to achieve his goals? So again, think back to that year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And if you haven't already, you might want to watch the recording I posted where I completed Thomas's new IEP. So we want to think about instructional goals, related services, right? Some students still might need occupational therapy or speech language services, stuff like that. We want to think about community experience provided outside the schools. A lot of places have community-based job exploration, job site training, banking, shopping, all these things that we probably take for granted. Some of our students are going to need to learn how to do some of these things so that they can live more independently, right? Some of them might need skills or instruction in grooming, laundry care, food preparation, stuff like that. And then also students might need a functional vocational evaluation to determine the student's readiness for employment. So we want to make sure that the student is ready to go out into some sort of job, whatever is appropriate, again, for them. So here are some examples of transition services. So take a few seconds and read through that. Oh my goodness, I'm almost out of time already. How does this happen? So you want to make sure that the student has been informed of the transfer of adult rights no later than 1 year before the student reaches the age of majority. Again, it depends on the state of residence. Sometimes I just make up words. All y'all are welcome. And again, you would want to just check with your local school or district to get more information about that. Okay, so summary of performance. I think I have this over here. IDEA requires schools to summarize the AA and FP of students who graduate or no longer receive services after age 22 so that they can still meet qualification standards under ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act or other laws pertinent to adults with disabilities. Might be Section 504 or something like that. But if a student still needs support, as they're getting older, we want to make sure that they are able to qualify under Americans with Disability Act. So I think it says here's an example. So you want to look at Keege's transition plan, which is appended to his IEP, and you will find each requirement addressed on the form. I believe he was the only one of transition age from Meet Our students, but don't quote me on that. But go back and look at his transition plan. Again, you want to remember the IEP and the transition plan are complementary documents, okay? And IEP teams serve secondary students most effectively when IEP goals are addressed with educational service as well as community-based services. Because we know these students aren't just going to stay in school forever, right? So what are they going to do after they turn 21 or 22? Okay, I think we did it. So again, here are some examples. Don't submit anything, but if you want to check your knowledge of this when Josh arrives at work from the city bus, he will independently wheel himself into the building, clock in, and begin his work with no verbal prompts for at least 4 weeks. So what services would those be? Okay, so again, congratulations, woohoo! You have learned and practiced all 7 steps for writing quality IEPs. So with some practical experience, you will become comfortable writing quality IEPs. It is hard to teach y'all to write IEPs without, some of you have, students or your own children, but some of you don't. So we do the best we can. I think that's it from, there's the appendix with the answers, but I did also want to show you just really quickly this last slide. Take a few minutes, watch this in slideshow view, the PowerPoint. You can see this student is accepted to Clemson Life, which is a fabulous program. I used to work for them. There are a lot more universities now that have programs similar to Clemson Life, which stands for Learning is for Everyone, where individuals with intellectual disabilities are going, they go to college for the same experiences that their peers get with modifications and adaptations, of course. And then here, if you look here, this is a good example of how a student can participate in their own IEP meeting. And this is a bad example of how this student gets excluded from his IEP meeting. And sorry about the arrows. I don't know why they look like that. But anyway, that's it. That is all the steps to writing high quality and effective IEPs. So that's it.